A homeowner got a 75% conventional loan and paid 2 points. If the points totaled $1,000, what was the sales price? Well, we know that the loan is 75% of the sales price. We also know that this homeowner paid 2 points, and we know how much he paid for the points. So using that, we can calculate the loan amount and then work backwards to the sales price. So the first thing we got to think about is that the $1,000 in points paid is smaller than the loan amount. So that's going to go on the top of our T. 2 points written as a decimal is 0.02. So $1,000 divided by 0.02 means that our loan amount is $50,000. Now that loan amount is 75% of the total sales price or actual price of the home. So if I take that $50,000 and I divide it by the 75%, I come up with a sales price of $66,666. A buyer bought a house for $125,000. The house originally sold for $118,250, and the house appraised at $122,500. If the buyer applies for an 80% loan, what will be the amount of the loan? The trick here is knowing where to start. What the buyer bought the house for was $125,000, but the house didn't appraise for sales price, and the lender is always going to loan on the sales price or appraised value, whichever is lower. What the house originally cost, the $118,250, has no bearing on this question. So you need to start with the $122,500 and multiply it times 80%, which is how much the bank will lend on the property. 80% times $122,500 gives us a loan amount of $98,000. A purchaser received a mortgage loan of $80,000. They paid a total of $4,000 in discount points. How many points were they charged? If I go to my T and I put the $4,000 in points paid on top, and I divide that by the loan amount of $80,000, I come up with 0.05 or 5 points. Finance, additional questions. A person received a loan for $80,000 and had to pay 1.5 points. What would he have to pay? The loan amount is $80,000, which is larger than the amount of points that need to be paid. If each point is 1% or 0.01, 1.5 points is 0.015. So I simply multiply 0.015 times $80,000 and I come up with $1,200 in points paid. If the interest rate is 5.25% and the monthly interest payment is $35, the principal sum would be. The relationship with interest and the amount of principal is based off of annual interest. So I need to get my $35 per month interest into an annual number. 35 times 12 months in a year, gives me an annual interest of $420. This goes on top of my T. The hardest part about this problem is knowing how to write 5.25%, which in a decimal is 0.0525. So $420 divided by 0.0525 gives me a principal balance of $8,000. A bank has a policy of making loans of 80% of the first $20,000 of the appraised value of the property, 90% of the next $20,000 of the appraised value of the property, and 95% of any amount remaining. If the qualified buyer wants to finance a home appraised at $112,000, which of the following amounts would the buyer be able to receive as a loan from this bank? So let's break it down into parts. Part number one is they can get 80% of the first $20,000. So 80% of $20,000 is $16,000. They can get 90% of the second $20,000. So 0.90 times $20,000 is $18,000. Now it says that they can get 95% of any amount remaining. Well, if the home appraised at $112,000, which is going to be the starting point for the loan, we take $112,000 and we subtract the first $20,000 we used and the second $20,000 we used, which leaves us a remaining amount of $72,000 to work with. And the bank will loan on 95% of that $72,000. That totals to $68,400. The question is which of the following amounts will the buyer be able to receive as a loan from this bank? So we need to add $16,000 plus $18,000 plus $64,000. And if I add those three items together, that equals $102,400.